Inspector Walsh put his hands behind his head. Jackie was very quiet. "What did your mother say?" Jackie opened her bag and looked for a cigarette. "Can I smoke?" "Of course. This is your house," Inspector Walsh said. He watched Jackie. "What did your mother say?" he asked again. "She wanted to go downstairs again. She remembered the dogs. She wanted to get some dinner for them. I went to my room, and she went downstairs." "What time was this?" "I don't remember. About midnight, I think." "And the cup of hot milk?" "It was on the table by her bed." "Did you need your mother's money?" "No, Inspector. Money is not important to me. There are more important things," Jackie said quietly. "Well, your Uncle Albert wanted money. Tom Briggs wanted the garden. You wanted nothing?" Jackie finished her cigarette and looked up at the inspector. Her eyes were suddenly angry. "Don't forget Peter Hobbs. He lost his job because of my mother. He wanted to kill her, you know. And what about Diane? You found the empty bottle in her bag." Inspector Walsh listened carefully. "We're going to question everyone, Miss Clarkson." Jackie said nothing for a minute. "Would you like some sandwiches and coffee, Inspector?" "Ah, yes, please," Inspector Walsh said warmly. "I would like sandwiches and coffee very much." Jackie left the room. Inspector Walsh thought about her. Why was she suddenly angry? The room was quiet. Chapter 5. After the coffee and sandwiches, Inspector Walsh called Roger Clarkson to the office. Roger came in and sat down. The inspector began at once. "Now, Mr. Clarkson, why was your mother angry with you last night?" "This house is very big," Roger said. "It was a lot of work for Mother. I wanted her to move. But no, she loved this house and garden. She didn't want to move." "Tell me about your job, Mr. Clarkson. Your mother is dead, and now you're rich. Do you need money?" Roger's face was suddenly afraid. "What are you saying? I didn't kill my mother. I need money, that's true. A friend and I want to build 10 houses here, in this garden. We can get a lot of money for them. So I wanted Mother to sell this house. It's true. But Mr. Briggs wanted half the garden too, you know, for his farm." Inspector Walsh moved a pencil on the table. Tell me, what happened upstairs? You went to your mother's room? Yes, I did. I wanted to say good night to my mother. Did you talk about the house again? Yes, I did. Again, she said no. She loved the house and didn't want to sell it. Inspector Walsh watched Roger for a minute. I see. We found the empty bottle of sleeping tablets, Mr. Clarkson, in Diane's room. Roger's face did not change. Oh? Someone put them there. Diane did not kill my mother. I know that. She found the body. Very well. I would like to see Diane next. Roger got up and left the room. Inspector Walsh stood up and put his hands in his pockets. He went to the window and looked out at the trees. Why was Roger Clarkson afraid? Was it important? He looked at Sergeant Foster. Tomorrow morning, go to Mr. Clarkson's office. You have the name, he said. Ask some questions about him. About his job, friends, money. Sergeant Foster wrote it down. Yes, Inspector. A good day for tennis, Sergeant? Sergeant Foster laughed. Don't say that. It's not easy, you know. I don't like sitting here, looking at the sun. Diane came into the room and sat down. She looked at Sergeant Foster and smiled. I saw you at the tennis club last month, I think. You play very well. Sergeant Foster's face went red. Inspector Walsh looked at him. Oh, yes. A fast and exciting player is Sergeant Foster. Diane smiled again at Sergeant Foster, and his face went redder. Well, Miss Clarkson, Inspector Walsh said, I want you to talk about last night. Diane stopped smiling. Oh, I can talk about last night. I can't stop talking about it. We were all angry. Mother went to bed early, and I made hot milk for her. We were all in the kitchen, and Peter Hobbs came in. He nearly broke the back door down. Diane stopped. Yes? He was very angry about a letter. He wanted to kill Mother. Are you going to talk to him? We're going to talk to everyone. Good. Tom Briggs came into the kitchen too. Are you going to talk to him? I'm asking the questions, Miss Clarkson. When did you take the milk upstairs? I went up after Roger. She stopped for a minute. Then she began again. I didn't like my mother, Inspector. She killed my father, you know. Last winter, after Christmas, she drove the car into a tree and killed my father. Inspector Walsh watched Diane's face carefully. I see. So you wanted to kill your mother? Diane laughed. I wanted to kill her, but I didn't. I can tell you a lot of things about this family, Inspector. Everyone wanted Mother to die. Uncle Albert wanted her money for his wife, Annie. And then my brother. He needs a lot of money. He has an expensive house and an expensive car. And think of Jackie. Do you know that Jackie didn't like Mother? A long time ago, a nice boy worked here. He was the gardener. Jackie loved him very much. But Mother said no. A gardener was not a good husband for a Clarkson girl. Inspector Walsh listened quietly. All this was very interesting, but was it important? Perhaps. What a happy family the Clarksons were. We found the empty bottle of sleeping tablets in your room, Inspector Walsh said quietly. He watched her face carefully. Diane stood up suddenly, her face angry. What? I didn't put it there. I'm not going to listen to this. She ran out of the room. Well, 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 Inspector Walsh said. She likes you, Sergeant. You need to be careful. Sergeant Foster laughed, but his face went red again. Someone put sleeping tablets in Molly's hot milk, the inspector said. All the family were in the kitchen last night. Peter Hobbs and Tom Briggs were there too. One of them killed Molly. Inspector Walsh got his hat and coat. Come on. We need to talk to Peter Hobbs and Tom Briggs. Let's get some more coffee first. I'd like a sandwich too. I'm hungry again. Chapter 6. They found Peter Hobbs under his car, an old green car. He got up slowly. He wore old blue trousers and a dirty orange shirt. We want to talk about Mrs. Clarkson, Inspector Walsh said. Oh, it's about her, Peter said. He looked at the inspector. I know she's dead. Someone in the village told me. Why did you go to the Clarksons' house last night? Jackie wanted me to come and see her brother Roger. You're angry, she said. Come and tell Roger. I went to the house, but nobody opened the door. So I made a lot of noise. And then they opened the door. Old Mrs. Clarkson wasn't there. But I told Roger. I told them all. Peter hit the car with his hand. I wanted to kill that woman. I lost my job, my first job, because of her. Last month, I was in trouble with the police, and that old woman wrote to my office, and she told them about the police. I wanted to kill her."
"Take it easy," Inspector Walsh said. "What happened next?"
"Jackie gave me some coffee, but her brother didn't listen to me," Peter said angrily. "Then Tom Briggs came in. He wanted to talk to Roger too, but Roger didn't listen to him. Jackie was very unhappy. She nearly cried. Then I went home. That's all."
"I see. Now tell me about the tablets. You went to the village on Thursday?"
"Tablets? Oh, yes, I remember. Jackie wanted me to get her mother's tablets from the village. I go to the village on my bicycle. This car doesn't work."
"Thank you, Peter. That's all."
"That's all?"
Peter laughed angrily.
"Ha! You're going to come back. I know that. I know the police." Tom Briggs' farm was about half a mile away, near the river. It was not a big farm, and the house was old and dirty.
"Not much money here," Inspector Walsh said.
Tom Briggs was a young man, about 30 years old, with dirty hands and bad teeth.
"What's wrong?" "Excuse me, I'm eating my dinner," he said. "We can wait. Finish your dinner," Inspector Walsh said. "We want to ask 1 or 2 questions about last night." "Come and wait in the front room," Tom said, and opened the door. Inspector Walsh looked at the things in the front room. There was an old black and white television, and some books on the table. There was a picture of a happy young girl with long brown hair on the table too. Inspector Walsh looked at the picture for a long time. Who was the girl? Tom Briggs came back into the front room. "Finished?" Inspector Walsh asked. "You know Mrs. Clarkson is dead?" Tom Briggs sat down suddenly on the nearest chair. "What? How did she die? When did it happen? I was there last night." "She died last night or early this morning?" "What did you do last night?" "Me? Why are you asking me?" "I went there to meet Mr. Clarkson, Roger. I'm losing money on this farm, and I need more land. I want half Mrs. Clarkson's garden." "You went into the kitchen. What did you do next? Can you remember?" Tom Briggs looked at Sergeant Foster, and then back at Inspector Walsh. "I remember it very well. All the family were in the kitchen. Peter Hobbs was there too. I talked to Roger. He wants his mother to sell the house, but he wants the land.
He doesn't want me to have it. But now Mrs. Clarkson is dead. What's going to happen now?"
Inspector Walsh got up and took the picture of the girl from the table.
"Who's this?"
Tom's face went red.
"Who? Oh, that's a friend. It's not. It was a long time ago."
The two detectives walked back to the Clarksons' house through the garden. It was beautiful, green and quiet. Inspector Walsh felt tired and hungry. Who killed Molly? He knew the answer now. But he needed to ask one or two more questions.
"Let's go, Sergeant," he said, and put on his hat again. "Tomorrow is a new day."
Chapter 7. On Monday morning, Sergeant Foster went to Roger's office and asked some questions. And then he went to Albert's house and asked some more questions. Inspector Walsh sat in his office and telephoned. He made phone calls about Peter Hobbs. And he made phone calls about Tom Briggs. And then he had some coffee and sandwiches. At 3 o'clock, the two detectives drove to the Clarksons' house.
"I would like to see everyone," he told Roger.
Everyone came into the sitting room and sat down. Inspector Walsh stood in front of the windows and looked at them, one by one.
"I want to talk to you. Someone killed Molly Clarkson. Someone put sleeping tablets in her hot milk and killed her. Nobody wanted to tell me the true story. But now I know the true story, and I'm going to tell you."
The two dogs came slowly into the room and sat down at Diane's feet. It was very quiet in the room. The inspector looked at Albert.
"Mr. King, your wife is very ill and needs a nurse. You told me this. You didn't tell me about your house. You're selling your house next month because you need the money."
Albert was angry.
"Last year, I asked Molly's husband for some money, and he said yes. But then he died in an accident."
"Accident?" Diane cried. "That was no accident. Mother killed Daddy because she wanted his money."
"Let's talk about you now, Diane," said Inspector Walsh. "You visited your mother every month, and you took money from her. Last month, she gave you money for your television. This month, she gave you money for your telephone. Every month you told your mother it was no accident. You killed Daddy. I'm going to tell the police." Your mother was afraid of the police, and so she gave you the money. But in the end, she wanted to stop you. She told Dr. Pratt. No more money, she told Dr. Pratt on Thursday, and on Saturday she died. You took the hot milk to your mother. What did she tell you?
Diane began to cry.
I loved Daddy. He always gave money to me. He loved me. It was Mother. She didn't love Daddy, and she didn't love me.
Diane stopped. The dogs got up and went to the door.
It's true. I took a lot of money from Mother. On Saturday she told me, no more money. I wanted to kill her, but I didn't.
The dogs came back and sat down again at Diane's feet. Inspector Walsh looked at Roger.
Mr. Clarkson also needed money.
Roger's face went red.
Don't tell them, please. Mr. Clarkson lost his job last month. He has no money, but he has an expensive house and an expensive car. He likes expensive things.
His sisters looked at him, but Roger put his hand over his eyes.
Don't talk to me. It doesn't matter now, Diane said. Mother is dead, and we have a lot of money. You don't need a job.
Roger's face went red again.
Be quiet, Diane. Now, Inspector Walsh began again. Peter Hobbs is a very angry young man. Mrs. Clarkson was not very nice to him. He got the sleeping tablets from the shop. But did he put the tablets in the hot milk? I think not. Tom Briggs wanted half the garden for his farm. He was in the kitchen that night. Did he put sleeping tablets in the hot milk? I think not.
Suddenly it began to rain. For a minute, everyone watched it through the window. Jackie took a cigarette from her bag and began to smoke.
But someone wanted Peter Hobbs to come into the kitchen that night. She wanted everyone to see him and listen to him, Inspector Walsh said. She? I don't understand, Roger began, and stopped. Inspector Walsh moved away from the window and sat down. I'm going to tell you the true story now. Miss Clarkson, you wanted Peter Hobbs to come to the house that night. He was very angry with your mother because of that letter. He said, I want to kill her. And you wanted everyone to hear that. Why?
Jackie's face went white.
It's not true. What about Diane? You found the empty bottle in her bag.
Diane stood up.
In my bag? Jackie, what are you talking about? Be quiet, please. And sit down, Inspector Walsh said.
He looked at Jackie.
It's true. We found the bottle in Diane's bag. But how do you know that? We didn't tell you. You did? Before? You told me before? No. We found the empty bottle in Diane's room. We told you that. You talked about Diane's bag. We didn't tell you. Sergeant Foster wrote it all down.
Inspector Walsh looked carefully at Jackie.
A long time ago, you knew Tom Briggs. He was the gardener here, and you loved him. But your mother didn't like him.
Jackie put her hands to her head.
No! No! We found your picture, an old one, in Mr. Briggs' house. You were younger then, and your hair was long. Last year, Tom Briggs came back, and you wanted him. He loved you too, but he had no money. He wanted the garden for his farm. He wanted money. He wanted you. But your mother said no. In the end, you wanted to kill your mother. And you did kill her. Your mother went downstairs to see the dogs. And you put the sleeping tablets in her hot milk. Later, you put the empty bottle in Diane's bag.
Jackie stood up. Her eyes were dark and afraid.
You don't understand, she cried. Mother gave me nothing. All those years. I wanted to be happy. To be with Tom. That's all. I love Tom. And he loves me. But Mother said no. Always no.
Then she began to cry. Nobody looked at her. Jackie left the house in a police car. Inspector Walsh watched, and then walked slowly to his car. He felt tired and hungry. He stopped and looked back at the house.
Well,
he said to Sergeant Foster.
In the end, they got the money. Albert, Roger, Diane. They're all rich now. But are they going to be happy?
He got into the car.
"Let's go," he said. "I'm hungry. I need a sandwich."